Hello, this is Hector Vladimir. Today is the 22nd of November, 2021. Here doing a second part of the presentation on the 1903, December 17, 1903, Wright's telegram, notifying basically the world that they had pretty much uh, invented the first controllable heavier than air flying aircraft. So, moving on with where I left off. Again, there was no measuring equipment that I know of that they used. They stated a wind speed of 21 miles, presumably 21 miles per hour, airspeed of 31 miles of presumably 31 miles per hour. However, they did not report ground covered. However, it is implied and accepted as 800 plus feet. I believe 850 or more. Let me verify that. Don't have that right this moment, but I believe it was 850 plus feet. So I will reiterate that here shortly. Um, this 112 feet was the flight that they considered not a true flight. As you can see, not a true flight. That's considered by the Wrights themselves. So they went back 3 days, 2 days later, I believe 3 days, and flew four times. The fourth and last time, they flew about 850 plus feet. And again, not area covered is not stated. The distance covered is not anywhere stated by the Wrights. It's just implied and accepted by the people that accept their narrative. May I say, or dare I say, over very scant and weak evidence. So, in the telegram, why is the 5? This is another observation. Moving on, um, past the equipment used. Again, they didn't have any measuring equipment to my knowledge. Correct me if I'm wrong. In the telegram, why is the 5 overwritten and visible despite the paper crease damage on the telegram? This may be a sign of manipulation. This is my opinion. If you look at the telegram, the original one, this is a very cleaned version, doctored. If you clean it, it's doctored to me. So if you go to the original, which I will do here, they have a crease. The original has a crease. That if you can see the crease, it goes right here. There's two very notable large creases, and there's one small one here. One of the large creases goes straight through 57. If you can zoom in, although there's a crease there, the 5, it's clearly visible right above the crease, which is, to me, every time when there's a crease like that and on a paper, the ink in this area is removed, damaged, peeled off by that crease. But you can see that the ink is right above that crease. Damage. A crease is a damage to a very old document. Any curator will tell you. Yet, in this case, That seems to be an overlooked detail. The 5 could very well, the 5-7 could very well be, I hate to say, or I hate to speculate, but the 5-7 could very well be an inserted number. Again, this is speculation. The My speculation again, the circle is basically a detractor for a doctored technique, a doctoring technique. The crease may also be a detractor made on purpose. Why would you fold and put away seemingly a document that could change the world, um, and basically give you credit for changing the world? So who knows whether this was a 5, whether this was a single 7. If you omit, just try to block from view the 5, and let's say they said that it was 31 miles, the longest 5 seconds or longest 7 seconds, which is a very reasonable number to claim for a flight, a first flight at that. I would not, myself personally, would not take any credit away from the uh, Wrights if they did fly for 5 seconds or 7 seconds. They would still be first of flight if they indeed were the first to fly a manned controllable aircraft. But if my theory or theorem or hypothesis is correct, someone needed to make sure that no one in the world would beat their achievement and insert it, whether the 7, the 5, or there may have been another number here, perhaps a 1, a 0, 2, a 3, a 4, who knows. Again, this is speculative. We must accept the note as it is until further notice, until we know of further details. So moving on, why is there a dark smudge on one of the most important number words in the note? 30. So also there's a smudge right over the number 30, which again could be a detractor for doctoring. As you can see, there's something behind the letter I that seems to be, this is the most original copy I have in the Sophia tone and everything. There seems to be a smudge of some sort of fingerprint right over the I, and it could be legitimate, it could be an accident, it could be innocent, but it could also be a very professionally doctored document where, if you notice the I, it seems like there may have been another letter behind the I, and this is just a detractor, the fingerprint, to hide the fact that that has been changed. Whether the whole word was changed, whether just the I was changed, there's not really a way I can tell. But the I itself is the one that looks the most suspicious. Perhaps the note ended, the original note did not have any letters or words past the letter I. This may have been a THE for the and the rest of the note changed so it can better, or it can support the narrative, better support the narrative, or support the narrative, period. Who knows? Again, speculative. After the December 17th, 1903, Wright's uh, public, anyone could witness flight was in December 8th, 1908. Again, after the 1903 flight, the first public flight, that means a flight that anyone could witness, was not until December 8th, 1908. That's over close to 5 years from that time. So, as far as my research has found, every single reported alleged flight from the Wrights were done in secrecy between basically until all the way until 1908, well into the age of aviation, which began in Europe uh, around 1905, meaning uh, in the public eye in Europe, worldwide international audience in France 1905. How was the year verified for sending this telegram? There's no year on the telegram. When was the telegram first published? Although there's no date on the telegram, and it is accepted to be published on December 1903. Again, I repeat that. I accept this because it would be exceedingly difficult to hide any later publication date. The leak appears that it indeed occurred on December 18th in Virginia, 1903, and are based on reports based on this telegram appears on newspapers immediately on that day, December 18th. So any other publication date is out of the question. However, this telegram, I do not know whether it's the same telegram from December 18th of 1903 that was retrieved by newspapers of the time. That I do not know and cannot guarantee. So the telegram may have other words. The original telegram may have had other words than the current note. As I mentioned earlier, I have not found any photograph of the telegram on any of the early newspaper articles of the time, which again I have not found or have not had access to newspaper articles of the time. They have been so thoroughly cleansed that I'm finding it exceedingly difficult to find newspaper clippings, articles of the time. As far as I know, there's no surviving physical evidence of the 1903 flight, meaning no material evidence, hard body evidence of the 1903 flight. By that I mean aircraft, pieces of the aircraft. By that I mean power plant propellers, you name it. Where is all that stuff? That stuff is destroyed, long gone, hidden, who knows what, buried. sold off, who knows what, but it's not available. It's not in the Smithsonian. It's not in uh, any place, to my knowledge. That stuff was destroyed, and the aircraft received by the Smithsonian is not the original aircraft that flew in December 17th or 18th, excuse me, December 17th, 1903, my friends. That is a reconstructed replica of that aircraft, which may or may not be of the same specifications. No physical evidence of any flights until late year 1908, meaning that there is no physical evidence of any flight until 1908. Not even 1904 flights, 1905 flights, 1906 flights, 1907 flights. Think about that. No evidence comes up until 1908, meaning that no one is allowed or even let near any of the aircraft that can report on it impartially, that could uh, examine it with a knowledgeable eye, with an expert opinion, until 1908. Beyond 1908, on 1908 and beyond, of course, I do accept that this was the case, but by then, too many foul play may have taken place, in my opinion. That is about 5 years, my friends, of uh, opportunity for foul play. So if that would not be admissible in court today, why should it be admissible in court before and now? So effectively, about 5 years later, September 1905, there is a photo alleging of the Flyer 3. This is a complete different flight and machine in flight, but even this I have not verified as its validity, because there's a lot of confusion when it comes to what, where, when, as far as the Wright flyers. It could be Flyer 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in different years: 1903, 1904, 1905, 1906. So I cannot tell you that I know for a fact this picture of the Wright's 1903 flight is in fact from 1905. Although I gotta say that I do accept it as such, and I believe so should you, until proven otherwise. I'm basically giving the Wrights a very much benefit of the doubt. This picture right here, it is reported to be a 1905 photo. Let's give him early 1905, January, to be generous, but it could be late year, not sure exactly. Really doesn't matter for my argument. So yes, I do accept the Wrights flew in 1905. As of today, I accept the Wrights flew in 1905. However, that doesn't mean that they contributed to aviation in 1905. They contributed to the United States aviation in 1905. The United States military, I believe, in 1905 they were doing demonstrations for the United States government, presumably the Defense or War Department or military, which is fine, better than no contribution. However, I'm focusing and I'm talking about 1903. That's the flight I doubt took place as described. 1905, as of now, although I have not looked into it with as much detail. I do accept. So by 1905, there were other pioneers actively flying. So if the Wright brothers happened to have flown as described in 1905, good for them. Very proud of them. However, there were other people already flying. In 1903, for example, Samuel Langley flew and crashed his Aerodrome A airplane. Again, not considered by the major aviation authorities here in the United States as a flight, but that's beyond the point. I considered it a flight, however feeble and short it may have been. Richard Pearse, however, of New Zealand, flew in 1904. This is very much reported. I have not looked into it with as much detail, but as of now, I must accept it with this small amount of research I've done on it. Also, Whitehead, which I've done extensive research on. That's Gustav Whitehead of Connecticut, United States, had flown, in my research and recollection, has flown in 1901. But I'll put here reportedly flown. He flew, he was actively flying. The question was, in 1905, were there other pioneers flying? And I'm answering that he was reportedly flying from 1899, to 1903. So from 1899, I cannot verify with much accuracy, but I can assure you from 1901 and beyond, he was flying, he did fly, at least in a few occasions. Just as the brothers did, the Wright brothers did. They did not continue to fly, of course, just like Gustav Whitehead did not continue to fly. There are likely other unknown by the author, of course, unreported, unrecorded, unverifiable powered flights around the world. In a larger sense, this aircraft, meaning the Flyer 3 of 1905, was the first practical working airplane, and its design, and I must say the Wrights, but I won't put that. I will leave that statement as it is, because this is not my statement. I'm just noticing that. This is NASA statement, a NASA statement. So in a larger sense, this aircraft, meaning the Flyer 3, put that in brackets because that's inserted just for clarification. And they were referring to the Flyer 3 of 1905, not Flyer 1. Was the first practical working airplane because it is in its design. The brothers solved the pitching problem which had plagued the 1903 and 1904 aircraft. And that is proof right there. They're talking about 1905. This aircraft was the culmination of their efforts in 1900. And I do have a link for that, just for those that wish to verify on your own that we are in fact talking about the Flyer 3. So NASA itself recognizes that the Flyer 3 was the first practical airplane. Again, my friends, we're talking about 1905, and this is the website where you can verify this information. Right here. And that statement is somewhere here, I believe. So in May 1904, about a dozen reporters showed at Huffman Prairie Field, an 85-acre cow pasture outside Dayton, Ohio, to watch the brothers fly. But the airplane motor would not start, and when reporters returned 3 days later, they left and returned 3 days later, the Wrights managed to fly 25 feet. They managed to fly 25 feet. Later that year, they figured out how to make their airplane turn. We're talking about 1904. So later in 1904, they gained control. Again, this is per the Baltimore Sun. So this statement tells me right here they had no control prior to May 1904. This is significant because NASA and basically the entire United States believes that Flyer 1 was controllable, meaning that it could turn. Not according to this statement. So controllable is in this 1903 flight is out of the question. That is my statement. So for that I also have a document I would like to cite, and it's this document, a paper, peer reviewed, presumably, since it's been published, and it's been published by the Department of Engineering at the University of Liverpool in the United Kingdom. Definitely peer reviewed, from Lawrence and Patfield, where it states that the flyer was not controllable prior to 1905. And I will show you that quote from this paper, which again you can look for on your own. Here's the title, here's the authors, everything you need to look for this paper. It's currently online right now as I speak. So, if fully controllable is not a requirement for first powered flight, then this swings the door wide open for other earlier flights like Gustav Whitehead's in 1901 and Adair's 1890 flight to claim the first at powered flight title. This is my statement, and it makes all the sense in the world. And I'll tell you who these gentlemen are. Most of you probably already know if you are aviation enthusiasts, as I am. So we shall see that from 1903 and 1904, the Wrights consistently made longitudinal flying qualities of their machines worse. It wasn't until mid 1905 that they managed to improve the situation. Also, the Wrights still had much to learn about the Lateran directional control. These words are very well chosen to basically protect the reputation of the Wrights. You have to read between the lines when you read these things. So they hadn't completed, continuing on, they hadn't completed more than a quarter circle in 1902. Quarter circle is not a lot. That's barely turning. So if they couldn't turn, they couldn't turn. This is a choice of words to protect uh, the Wrights. I mean, just think of what it would take for you to turn a quarter turn at a intersection. You will basically be going at a 45 degree. If you can't do a 45 degree, you have no turning control. So they couldn't do it in 1902. And it says here, clear as day, flew in straight lines in 1903. My friends, what else do you need to convince yourself that the Wrights did not have control in 1903? Therefore, I can rest my case right now, but we'll keep going. By September 1904, they had completed their first circuit at Huffman Prairie. I believe that is the military. Um, no, that is the presentation they did for the press, which they did not fly. However, once they started making turns, they often struggled with the control, complaining that they were unable to stop turning. Uh, and this is in September, late 1904. So in 1904, this, according to this paper, they still could not turn. Basically, they had no control in 1904. But in 1905 with the Flyer 3, I believe 1904 was still Flyer 2. 1903, excuse me, 1905 Flyer 3 was already in existence with control, lateral control, meaning that they could turn. They finally had control. So was the press on the side of the Wrights when they published an article without any evidence, meaning in 1903? I thought the press needed evidence to publish any articles, because if you just publish here and say, you can claim just about anything, that you were visited by aliens, that you were, taken by a tornado over to Kansas, and Wonderland. Who knows what you can claim? And they'll print it on paper. I mean, did they have any inside work in the press? Did they have any inside contacts? These were powerful men in an era where people bought other people very easily in the press. It was a more or less of a gilded age where people with money control had a lot more power and control than they even have today. And just imagine how much that is if you think people with money have less power than those people in those days today. So in 1903, was the press on the side of the Wrights, that they published an article without any evidence, photograph or physical, or just hearsay? Anyone can send a telegram and claim anything on it. This does not make it true. I found it extremely difficult to find any early reports on the Wrights from 1903, 1904, and 19, even through 1908. Why? Was the claimed suppression campaign by the Smithsonian, mentioned by the Smithsonian, successful? So a single photograph as proof without any way to determine it was taken at the time and date that it was reported. It wasn't published until years later in 1908. And all the holes and issues I have mentioned here, to me, this telegram already doesn't qualify as proof. Sorry to say that. The Wright's hometown paper, the Dayton Daily News, carried a accurate 6-inch item. Be careful when you read the word accurate. Who's considering what accurate? So carried a accurate 6-inch item about the achievement based on the telegram. but buried it, meaning that it basically went against it and destroyed it on page 8. So it supposedly helped the Wrights out on uh, the 6-inch uh, report, and then on page 8 had an erroneous headline that read, Dayton boys emulate great Santos Dumont. Interesting. The comparison to Santos Dumont was meant as a compliment, that is their comment. Be careful. But the Wright's heavier than air flights far surpassed the lighter than air jaunts of the flamboyant Brazilian made in the skies over Paris. Presumably, Santos Dumont flew dirigibles, air balloons, and such. However, this is also to be disputed, that they were referring to their lighter than air, his Dumont's lighter than air machines, because Dumont, if you didn't know, flew an aircraft in 1906, a practical airplane. And I have not researched much on him, and a very large part of the world's population believes he is the father of aviation. So I would take this with a grain of salt. This sentence with a grain of salt. They may have in fact been referring to Dumont's actual working aircraft, as far as heavier than air aircraft. So we'll leave that at that. That report I own. Also, it's the Baltimore Sun's article by Jonathan Briggs. You can look that up, from 2003. 2003 is a very significant year for aviation. Make sure, well, you probably know that if you are a enthusiast. A lot of things happened that year. So we'll leave that at that. Moving on, it is exceptionally convenient, my quote, when you can choose what erroneous is without having to prove why it is so. Disturbed by the coverage, this is a quote by the report in the Baltimore Sun. The brothers issued a statement to the AP, the news organization, on January 5th, 1904, setting the record straight, take that with a grain of salt, and concluding that the age of the flying machine had come at last. The statement had been published in the newspapers across the country and abroad, but almost no one took it seriously. This is the last commentary of the Baltimore Sun. So the newspapers were publishing things against the Wright brothers earlier on. That I can say, and they were outraged. The question is, why were they publishing things that went against their narrative? Were they accurate reports, but the brothers did not like it because it was disrupting their plans? Or were they inaccurate and they really had a reason to complain? Or was it a mixture or something in between? You have to decide on your own. Please find those reports. If you have them, send me a link for them. I would like to see them. I have not had a chance to find them. So you can't defend your point without a logical argument or evidence. The Wrights did not defend their points on their rebuttals, and they did not provide photos, evidence, pieces of aircraft. They did not provide anything to the newspapers to prove their point. So why should they change their story? The first picture of the 1903 flight was not published until 1908. That's per Century Magazine, a respected publication of the time, and found I retrieved this from Aviation website, 2021. Interesting fact about the telegram, numbers 57 and 59. Here I'm going to mathematically work out what the difference may be. And I just chose 59 and 57. If I happen to choose 5 or 7 or 17 or 27, I mean, the difference is magnitudes of more. It would be of magnitude more than these two numbers, the difference between these two numbers. The difference again between 5 and 59 would be enormous, would be almost enough to disqualify the first flight as a first. So going with 59 seconds on the note, again, if you forgot, we are talking about this number. It shows 57 here. However, uh, it is also claimed to be a 59. Going with that number, working it out, a mile is the same as 5,280 feet. 31 miles per hour is the same as 13.86 miles per second. If you are of a scientific background, this is just child's play to you. But we'll keep going. 57 seconds times 13.86 miles per second gives you this amount, 790.02 feet. And even though, yes, this is an imperial unit, everything's in imperial units. So the difference between, as I found out, the 817, this is the Smithsonian claim, feet, and 790 is quite significant, 27.72 feet. When we're talking about the first ever flight on Earth, powered, controlled, manned, 27.72 feet is huge. Uh, but someone may have wanted to be the higher number rather than the lower number for whatever reason. I won't go into it. Given that this account was true and exaggerated, it still did not mention the side, motion control, or altitude. Keyword, altitude. Nowhere in the telegram do you find an altitude. For all you know, how do you determine something to be flying if you don't tell me at what altitude you were going? Simple mistake could derail an entire lifetime of lies. If you don't give me an altitude, you weren't flying. Would not you agree? Moving on, Adair Clement did more than this. Adair Clement did more than this in 1890. As far as reports, at the very least, there was actually a reported altitude of 8 inches, feeble and not much, seemingly insignificant altitude, but an altitude nevertheless, and covered 165 feet airborne. Obviously airborne at 8 inches. 1 inch is airborne, 2 inches is airborne, 8 inches is airborne as well. So, as recorded by qualified, this again was recorded by qualified witnesses, presumably unbiased, people that were there to find holes with Clement Adair's uh, invention, not to help him out. They were trying to buy his invention, not help him out. So there are reports of a November 19. Let's move on from this. These are extremely important details. I'm hoping you're taking notes, mentally or otherwise. There are other reports of a November 1904 flight photo. I've seen this photo. I cannot make any details on power plants, propellers, and other corroborating witnesses, articles, reports, whatever. And I'll show you that photo of a 1904 flight. I cannot accept it as of right now. If you have any proof, comments, links, evidence of why I should, do send me a link. Do send me your comments. I will happily consider accepting it if uh, the proof is sufficient. And that photo of an alleged 1904 flight follows. 1904. There's a picture of a 1904 airplane on the ground. Presumably Flyer 2. And I will have to find that photo of the 1904 Flyer in flight, which I'm yet to accept. However, I would not have an issue accepting it because from 1904 to 1905, it could be the same aircraft. I seem to have misplaced that photo, but I will um, look it up and find it. Yes, the only 1904 archived photos I have are this one, and this one. But you probably have it, and this is beyond the point right now. I may look for that later. Finding information online against the Wright's narrative in the US is an uphill battle. An actual example I can give you right now is that I Googled, searched, typed these characters, these words. You can do this right now if you wish. If you are looking at this, reading this, listening to this in 2021, you may have a good chance of finding the same results as I have if you're here in the United States. This is what I typed: the first to fly heavier than air, Gustav Whitehead. Doesn't mean this is a true statement. Doesn't mean that this is a accurate statement. I'm just searching for anything dealing with that statement. But instead, I get countless websites that refute this claim. Why? Who's behind the censoring, the manipulation? I'm not looking for anything else other than for this. Google is among the best search engines that is extremely accurate when it wants to be. But in this case, it seems to do its own thing. Again, who's manipulating the algorithms? And this is what I get. The first This is the first search result on the website when I search for this on Google. This, the Smithsonian, the flight claims of Gustav Whitehead, basically refuting everything that Gustav Whitehead did as not being a first flight. Look it up. You can try it on your own. You probably will get the same result. And following this website, this is the first page, the first hit, number one. So that should be the most accurate search result, right? Should be. It's not. Then these follow. Then these other hits follow on the page right here. A mix of irrelevant and refuting websites. Very little, if anything, dealing with what my search was. So amazing. This is censorship at its best. Supposed to be the freest country on earth, especially when it comes to freedom of speech, freedom of the press, etc. I was surprised to see that Bing, a company of Microsoft with deep ties to the nation's aviation heart in Washington state, is slightly less censored. With the same search result, with the same search criteria, I got this on top of the page. I searched the same words exactly, copy and paste, and first hit GustavWhitehead.com. Surprised to find that a website that actually supports the Gustav Whitehead narrative actually appears on the search, maybe because not too many people use Bing here in the US. The German flag, again, Gustav Whitehead was a German born person. So, and then I get, after this, I get a repertoire of other websites, a mix really of supporting and unsupporting and unrelated websites. Again, when I say supporting, I mean supporting of the narrative of Gustav Whitehead as being first in flight. All right. So moving on to my next argument, using the studies of Louis Pierre Mouillard. This is a article from Wikipedia, uh, which he lived from 1834 to 1897. On the flight of birds, he constructed his first flying machine in 1886, the Adair EO. It was a bat-like design run by a lightweight steam engine of his own invention, with 4 cylinders, with a power rating of 20 horsepower. Take a note of that. More powerful than the Wright brothers Flyer 1 in 1903. Driving a 4-blade propeller. The engine weighed 51 kilograms. Really not sure what the the Wright's engine weighed, but that's something to consider. Probably a lot more since it's a steam engine. By that I mean this one probably weighed more than the Wright's, since this one was a steam engine. So moving on, the wings had a span of 14 meters. That's huge. And I believe even a lot larger than the Wright's Flyer 1. And I will research that here. If you could give me a chance, this is very important and I must know what the wingspan of the Wright Flyer was. Oh, I thought I had that ready. I don't, apparently. Okay, I'm looking in the wrong place. Okay, here we go. Specs. 1903 Wright's Flyer. This is per the Smithsonian. Foremost authority when it comes to aviation in the United States. And going down the line, they describe the wingspan of 12 meters, tiny in comparison to Clement Ader's creation. And for good reason. Clement Ader's creation or aircraft was funded and built with the help of the French government. An entire nation was behind this project. So, moving on, and if you don't know the Ader Aol or who Clement Ader is, I highly encourage you to look for that and research and learn what this is and who Clement Ader is. You will be surprised. Okay, so the wings had a span of 14 meters. Did I get that right? Okay, so yeah, maybe the Ader was smaller. Okay, so the Wright's wingspan, okay, not too much bigger. The Wright's wingspan, the Wright's Flyer 1 was 12 meters, 12.3. Clement Ader's was 14. Not a whole lot of difference. Thought it was a lot more. So all went up weights, or all up weight was 300 kilograms. So on October 9th, 1890, Ader attempted to fly the AO. Aviation historians give credit to this effort as a first, or as stated here, as a powered takeoff of an uncontrolled flight in ground effect. Be very careful how they word these things. So basically, they consider it powered takeoff and uncontrolled flight in ground effect. Who determines why is it in ground effect? Is it the height, the altitude? I thought ground effect you had to have flown. That's during landing when you bring air with you. So whoever wrote this is not an aeronautical engineer or anything near anything dealing with aeronautical technology. You cannot do a ground effect taking off, my friend. So approximately, whoever wrote that needs to revise this immediately. So of approximately 50 meters, that's 160 feet, flown by Clement Ader in the AO, the machine he built, again with the help of the French government, at a height of approximately, taking it with a grain of salt, who's saying that, 20 centimeters or 8 inches, but we'll accept it. I accept the things in yellow. Some of the things may or not be true. But even if everything in this was true, and again, these are other sources for it, Clement Ader flew in 1890 the first powered aircraft, whether it's uncontrolled or not. Why do I say that? Because the Wrights had no control, or had the same level of control as Ader in 1903. We have established that already. Moving on. This is what I think. This is another point I want to make, just as a thinking point. Here are the total presumed models that each inventor built to get off the ground controllably. Let's remove controllably to get off the ground. For Whitehead, 21 models, model 21, or the Whitehead 21, took 21 tries to get off the ground. For Dumont, 14 tries, meaning 14 different versions of a flying machine. It could be 14 different machines, but it could also be different versions. For Wrights, 1. Amazing. That is just something to think about, and something that is very, very unlikely. So to wrap up evidence for the 1903 flight, what do we have? We have one photo, which I have gone into detail before. We have actually two photos. Only one shows the aircraft in flight, and it's this one. I've gone into extreme detail of explaining this photo. It appears to have been at that point in time. Let's say this is 1 foot. It appears to be about maybe about 4 to 5 feet off the ground, maybe 6. Not bad. But there are a repertoire of issues with this photo, and I went into a lot of detail in explaining that too. Even accepting this as truth, there's problems with that evidence. The other photo I mentioned is this one, and just in case you don't know, these photos are straight from the Library of Congress. These are it. These are the photos that are it. Nothing else is out there from 1903. That last photo and this one. You can see the flyer. Some people think it's resting on the ground. Certainly the Library of Congress thinks it's resting on the ground. Others think this right here is a shadow. It may very well be. It appears to be a good 8 foot. No, I don't know. I really don't know how far from the ground. I'm sure there are techniques to find out if this was in fact a shadow. I have found that they have probably found out that it is about 200 and something feet, about 250 feet from the end of the track. But the Library of Congress and all of their experts accept that this is an aircraft on the ground. They also do accept that this is an aircraft on the ground about 817 feet away from this end of the track. You be the judge. These are the two only pieces of evidence, photographic evidence, that there is for that day's flight. So let's say that we have two pieces of photo of evidence, which I have. They would be inadmissible in court. Let's put modern court. But I accept them as evidence. That's why I have them under the evidence badge, or under the evidence title. I accept it. One telegram, inadmissible in modern court. But let's accept it. So, if you're the jury, I have three pieces of evidence against these other pieces of evidence, which are certainly more than three. First, zero aircraft, no body, no crime, right? Zero credible witnesses. Nobody saw it. That's credible. No crime, right? Zero measuring equipment. What did you see things happen with? How did you know how fast? How high? Is it hearsay just by what you think? Remember, bike mechanics, gauging. I know they were experts by that time in aviation and aeronautics. I give them that. But we're talking about recent bike mechanics. They hadn't been too long that they were only bike mechanics since they got into aviation, at least in a professional sense and manner, full time. So that's an indication why they did not, to me at least, it's an indication why they did not use measuring equipment. I may be wrong. I stand corrected if this is not the case. But as of right now, zero measuring equipment as evidence, for evidence. Conflicting early reports. There is a multiplicity of reports that are different depending who you ask, what location, what paper, what newspaper report, etc. So that brings in problems to your case. Predetermined outcome by the Wright family. They were expecting to have a flying aircraft in 1903. Whether they got it or not, they are very inclined to say that they did. That's just human nature. 2 to 5 years allowed for foul play. There's a rule for that in criminal justice. I forget the name of it. Help me out in the comments. There's a sample. Moving on. There is evidence that the Wrights flew a semi-controllable aircraft in January 1st in 1905. That's beyond the point. We're talking about 1903. There is ample evidence the Wrights were flying in public beginning 1908. Beyond the point. We're talking about 1903. Questions about this 1905, about even the 1905 flight remain irrelevant, dismissed. We're talking about 1903. Did the aircraft have landing gear? No. But does that mean that it's not an aircraft? Irrelevant. No, it does not. Although when it comes to being practical, uh, it's different. The AO did have a landing gear, in case you did not know, but we'll leave that out. Also, Model 21 from Whitehead had a landing gear. So in that sense, they were more practical than the Wright's Flyer 1. Take that into consideration. Did the AC or aircraft take off under its own power with no catapult? No. That is the answer. That may, whoever, and depending who you ask, that may disqualify the Flyer 1 as being an aircraft. But let's accept it. Let's leave it there because I believe that is a disqualifier. But you may not. And that's okay. Were there unbiased witnesses? We have brought up the witnesses already. But we'll leave that there. Parties. were there unbiased party accounts, and reports of what they saw without the influence of or manipulation from the Wrights earlier on? If you understand the question, if I crafted it right, I hope I did. Were there people that were unbiased that made reports, the first few reports? I believe not. I believe the people that were there were friends, buddies of the Wrights. They were there under direction, manipulation, influence, if not outright being paid. I believe they even had been paid by the Wrights to report what they saw. That is, my friends, influence. Even a little bit of money can influence someone to say things that are favorable to you. So, no, I don't believe they were unbiased witnesses and reporters uh, present during the first flight, let alone during the first few flights during the testing and the development of the machine. Unlike uh, Clement Adert's flight in France and Gustav Whitehead's flights in 1901. I'm not going to go into those. Those would require many hours to explain, but hopefully you are familiar with them, and leave them in the comments if you have any questions or comments on those people. Again, Adair and Whitehead, both aviation pioneers. Okay, so summary and final comments. This is basically wrapping it up. The truth about important inventions is critical. I believe we have accepted that. The truth about aviation inventions is critical. If you're watching this video and you have watched it for this long, you definitely accept this. Aviation has changed the world. Same applies. And aviation has ushered globalization and space exploration along with a repertoire of other benefits and destruction as well. Aviation has brought ill as well as every other invention has. So my current accepted order of the manned, heavier than air, powered, controllable aircraft or flight is in this order. First, Clement Ader with the AO on October 9th, 1890 in France. Second, Gustav Whitehead, number 21, August 14th, 1901 in Connecticut, United States. Third, yes, the Wrights. I believe they were the third to fly a MH-TAPC with the Flyer 3 in 1905 in Ohio, United States. And I have not researched too much Santos Dumont, so for now we'll leave him out. Don't if you're watching this and you know a lot about Santos Dumont, put some of his information and your evidence for his contributions in the comments. I will happily consider his contributions, even if he happens to take the first place. I have no problem. Also, if you have evidence of the Wright brothers being number one, put those in the comments as well. I will happily put the Wright brothers in the number one spot if you can convince me and others of no, if you can convince me, I will accept them as number one, period. So references, again, there are a repertoire of references that I basically researched and found for this presentation, and they are here. There's not a whole lot of detail on them. But first, the Smithsonian Institute, the Library of Congress, of course, of the United States, and the National Aviation and Space Administration. That is, in case you didn't know, NASA. There are other references here that were for the one article on Adair. If you'd like to find out more on Adair, that's Clement Adair. Here are some references on him and his article. So I hope you liked the video, the presentation. It took a long time, believe it or not, to research it and find out all the small amount of details, because this is only a small part of uh, the information, the world of the universe of information that's out there on aviation. The pioneers listed here all deserve credit. All of them deserve credit, and they all contributed, I believe, to aviation. However, the truth of the matter is that I believe, um, if anything, if you want to take anything away from this whole presentation, is that things are not the way they seem sometimes. Things change, facts may change with time, depending of who speaking uh, about what, and what are the interests. I believe there are interests in the US to keep the Wrights in their place of being the first that powered controlled manned flight, not the least being commercial interests, military interests, defense interests, um, interests of pride, probably top number one on the list, and supremacy. Being supreme, being number one, being on top is something that is human, something that I am guilty of, and it is just one of the ugly sides of our behavior and our traits from evolution, something that we must suppress, but it is very difficult. Let's accept that is very difficult. If we begin with accepting how difficult it is, then you can begin to find the truth. And finding the truth is extremely important, because that's going to clear a lot of problems, and it's going to clear a lot of um, conflicts. When you clear problems and conflict, you advance more. So I believe, this is just my opinion, I believe we would be a lot further along if we spoke the truth from the beginning, a lot further along in aviation and space travel, if we spoke the truth from the beginning and we shared information freely from the beginning. But competition took took hold, and that delayed a lot of our, as humans, as a world, advancement, delayed a lot of advancement, and we are where we are today, where we barely exited our atmosphere and visited the moon. We have very much no plans to visit other planets, no serious plans at least, to visit Mars and other planets, or even Venus. And we basically do not even think publicly, in the public arena, about space colonies, for example, orbiting uh, habitats, cities, and let alone interstellar travel, or intersolar travel at the very least. We're not talking about interplanetary travel, let alone interstellar or intersolar. So we are behind. many of you can agree that we can be there and we should be there by now. Maybe we will get there, but it's with a lot more risk because look at where we are now with climate change and how much money, effort, and time we're having to spend on climate change because the golden years of um, space explorations have come and gone, and the furthest we've gone is to the moon and back. 12 men from America, and that's it. Yes, we have had robotic missions that have had extreme amounts of success, but even them have only gone to the edge of the solar system. Many of them are just robotic missions, most of them, if not all, and most of them, if not all, are just ships that go and never return. That is a lack of technology, a lack of development that, if they exist, an alien civilization would laugh at this moment. Thank you very much. I will leave it at that. If you liked the video, I hope you did. If you have listened to the video this long, you definitely did. So you might as well hit the like button. Might as well subscribe because more is coming. I guarantee it. And there is a lot there already. So if you haven't looked, if you haven't heard, there's a lot more there. It may not be on the mainstream, but you dig it up, and you'll find information that is as valuable or more than this right here. Keep it here for information like this. There's other things out there. There's other authors and YouTubers and video producers out there just like me or better. But I would encourage you to keep it here if for anything to have a variety of viewpoints and information sources. Thank you very much. Have a great day.